Hi, and welcome to Stitching with Cindy Botts. Today I wanted to talk about designing your own quilt project. As of late, I've been really wanting to put my own twist on things, using some public domain blocks, adding different sashing and things, and color combination to some of the patterns I have from books, just trying to make it more my own. So, what I thought we'd do today is just talk about the things that you can consider when you really want to start creating some of your own work, making the projects your own. So, the first thing I thought we'd talk about is what to make. Now, you would think that if you're going to design your own project, you really have to have in mind what you're going to make. Are you going to make a table runner, a pot holder, a wall hanging, a quilt, or something else? Sometimes you really don't have to have that finished product in mind. In fact, sometimes when I'm thinking about blocks and things, and it really kind of develops on its own. So today I'm thinking about making, here's one of my kitties. This is Sylvester. We'll see if Sylvester can find his own spot. Come on, Sylvester, find a spot. Oh, such a cute kitty. So, sometimes when you're planning things, you start with a certain thought in mind, and as you develop the plan, it changes. The block size changes, the sashing width changes, and you may have first started out doing maybe a simple table runner, but it's now turned into a wall hanging or a lap quilt. So don't be too stuck on what you want your finished project to be. Be flexible. Try to let your mind explore different avenues. So what I'm thinking about making is a quilt, a lap size quilt, but it may be a table runner. I'm really not sure, and we'll kind of just go with the flow. Once I start making the blocks, I'll really get a feel for it. So you can start with what you want to make if you're really sure that you just want to do a one block pot holder, by all means, and that would be fine. So some of the things you want to consider is the size. If you're planning on making just a pot holder, you probably want a 9-inch block or an 8.5-inch block to work with. If you're making a quilt or a wall hanging, you really can do whatever size you want. When you're thinking about your fabric choices, now if you have a very large print, you might want to be fussy cutting that down to get certain parts of it. So you might want to keep that in mind if you've already chosen your fabric that you want to use. Are you going to be using pre-cuts? Some of that will really determine what you make and how you go about it. Are you going to use a stash busting scrappy where you have material of variety of sizes to pull from, fat quarters, large pieces, small pieces? Again, it's not really gonna guide your quilt making unless you really want to use a specific kind of fabric. Like if you have a layer cake and that's what you want to use, well then that is going to limit some of your choices. Okay, so then your style. What kind of project do you want to make? Are you going to make a pieced project where you're doing patchwork, or are you going to do something with applique? Applique, you're going to want to decide if you're going to do a raw edge or a turn under edge. If you want to do pieced, you're going to be thinking about, are you doing a patchwork, which is just simple sewing 1/4-inch seams that pieces of material together? Are you going to do a paper pieced project where you're going to have to make templates and things? Are you going to do foundation piecing where you're going to be maybe doing a strip quilt block on another piece of material? So these are all kind of things to keep in the back of your mind while you're thinking about what you want to make. And then the other thing you want to do is think about the skill level. Now, are you making this pattern, this quilt for yourself? Is this something that you're making up because you just want to have this item, this wall hanging or tote bag, whatever it may be? So you know your own skill level. If you're making it for someone else to follow, is your audience target a beginner, a confident beginner, someone who's done a few things but it's not really gone beyond that beginning stages of traditional squares and rectangles? And is it for someone who's got a lot of knowledge with doing different shapes, triangles and diamonds? And is it for an expert? Are you someone that really has great experience and knowledge and wants to reach for the stars? So then the other thing you can start to consider is, what kind of blocks are you comfortable with? Or are you going out of your comfort zone? Are you going to use traditional blocks, or are you going to design your own block? Now, if you're going to design your own block, there's different ways to do that. I suggest using graph paper, or another thing that I've just started doing is I cut some foam pieces that are all like Unifix type cubes type things where they're uniform, like two squares can make a rectangle, and then I have a rectangle piece that is the same size as that. I cut some triangles that would be the same, where two triangles could make that same square, and I can lay that out on the table and really create some things. So are you going to do a seasonal type quilt, or something that's more representational, like leaves or houses? Are you going to do specific colors, autumn colors? Are you going to get a pattern that really is focusing on the type of prints you have? Are you going to do blocks that are all the same size? Are you going to use different sizes to create your pattern? The number of blocks and the type of blocks. All right, so for that, thinking like, are you going to use one block to create the design, such as a log cabin block where you can make a barn raising, you can do all sorts of different layouts? Or are you going to do a repeating block, like different 9 patches? Are you going to make a sampler type quilt? Then you have your layout thoughts. Is this something where you're going to do a number of blocks across and another number or the same number down? Are you going to have it be a medallion style where you have a large center block and then you have rows going around it? Or are you going to do a row quilt where you have like a row of houses and then a row of trees? That type of thing. The other thing you can talk about is, or think about, is the sashing. Are you going to have plain sashing? Are you going to use connectors with cornerstones? Are your sashing pieces going to make a secondary pattern? Construction techniques. Now this kind of goes with your skill level. Are you going to do strip piecing and magic 8 and chain piecing? This comes more into play once you start actually figuring out how to create that block that you've chosen or that you've created. You know, actually thinking about cutting out the pieces and how you're going to assemble that block, the actual construction. Another thing to consider is inspiration. Have you seen something that you really like? Um, Maybe you saw a great quilt, but you'd like to make it in black and white. Or you saw a black and white quilt and you want to make it in a variety of scrappy colors, and playing with the the tone of the quilt, the light and the dark and the medium shades. Did you see a row quilt and thought you'd like to make a row quilt? You've never made one before, or you've made one in the past and now you want to make your own. Think about different borders that you've seen. What did you like? What didn't you like? Sashing ideas. I recently saw some really cool sashing ideas that I hadn't thought about. Borders. Borders can be just plain strips of fabric, or they can be pieced. You can use border fabric. I just was looking in a book and they've been using the border fabric in the actual piecing and how that makes such a difference. And the other thing I was looking at that they were talking about was having those different shades in your quilt. So you have the dark and the light and the medium. Quilting, when you get to that spot, are you a straight line quilter? Are you a free motion quilter? Do you use stencils? All of that can kind of guide your quilt making also. For myself, I am not good at free motion, so most of mine is straight line quilting, or I have my sister help me with quilting. So I recently posted a quilt that is a Valentine's Day style quilt, and that it's hearts. And I thought that this might be my next project, being another heart. Now, when I did the heart, I simply used the idea of a rectangle that has a snowball on both sides at the top, and then a snowballed corner at the bottom that was larger, and then that piece make a left side and a right side, and that creates the heart shape. And I've seen this on other people's station, this type of style. You can also make the same style where the top edge here is not pointed but is flat, and it kind of gives it a more rounded look. All right, so there's a lot of different ways that you can create that. Again, one of the things I suggest is using graph paper. Now here I have my graph paper, and I've just illustrated here how you can make the point, or you can make the blunt edge. Now, when you're using your graph paper, you can think of different ways to do it. You can have each square represent an inch. You can have each square represent 2 inches. I usually do it so that each square represents an inch. That just leaves it so it's not so confusing to me, but you can do it how you want. Okay, so this is my square block, and then this one I made as a rectangle, and that's up to you how to do it. Just sketch that out. And then what I was thinking was there are different ways to fill this colored space. You can do it one color, or you can use stripes, vertical or horizontal, to fill that rectangle space, and then just snowball the corners. You can use squares. You can, and these are half square triangles. You can use material that you've made from the cash register, or the cash register tape strips that you can make. You can just make scrappy strips, just sewing different pieces together so it's not a uniform scrappiness. You can take this piece of paper and draw straight lines across it and make your own paper piece pattern. As long as you draw your nice straight lines and lay your piece of paper fabric over it, covering the raw edges when you fold it back, you can make so many different fun, unique mosaic style pieces of material. You know, as long as you make a nice piece where you can get these angles on cut out. So if you want to do a rectangle piece, you can just create however you want. You could have a square and a square and then some strips going this way and some strips going that way, and then snowball that. There are a ton of different ways that you can fill in this rectangle portion with scrappy material. So that is a lot of options that you could have for making a heart block. And then for the layout, there was some layout things that I was playing with my graph paper. Here is one layout where I was thinking maybe I wanted to have a large heart and some small hearts. Maybe I wanted a row in between of small hearts. Maybe I wanted a border of small hearts. Not really sure. That was one of the thoughts I was having. The other thought I was having was, what about a heart inside a heart? You could do, you know, a red, a pink, and a red, and a nice pink border, different colors, obviously, you can use. But that was another thought I had about making another heart quilt wall hanging table runner. Not sure exactly where it's all going to lead. Then this is just a sketch of how you could do that with regular sashing with cornerstones. That's one option. And then I was also thinking about how in my other heart quilt I did this with the sashing, and that is fun. You could make a star in the sashing. You could even put a heart here in the center of the sashing of the cornerstone. Doing a quilt right now that I have these diamonds in the sashing. I recently saw someone had hourglasses in their sashing, and that's really cool too. So as I was doing all this brainstorming, I was thinking about the inspiration part, and I really like the chandelier quilt that I made. I got to thinking, could I do that with hearts? And I don't see why you couldn't do that with hearts. Obviously, it's a whole different structured construction pattern of how you would do it, but I think it definitely is a possibility. And then the more I looked at it and sketched it, and I am thinking that that is what I'm going to do, but I don't want the straight row by each other. I think I'd want to stagger it. And the other possibility is I'm not sure if I want this space in between or if I want to slide this whole unit here over so it's touching the other unit or closer to the other unit. This is sketched out on graph paper so that these large hearts are 12 by 10 and the smaller ones are 6 by 5. So if it's a table runner, we're starting to get kind of large. If you want to do a third row, I know a lot of people talk about sets of 3 and how that really makes a nice presentation. Doesn't leave a lot of room for borders. If I wanted to make it a wall hanging, I might decide to make a heart border of the smaller hearts going across and up the sides. Not really sure, but as of right now, this is the design that I'm leaning towards. So I hope you found this video interesting and inspiring. Please like and subscribe. I would love to hear some comments of just if you're making a heart quilt, if you found this interesting, if you're interested in doing some of your own designs and making quilts more unique in your own, or if you really like to follow a not a strict pattern, but really one that lays it all out for you. I know some people are not real comfortable with the math portion of it. Now I try to make my math portion as simple as possible. Like this is a 12 by 10, so I made these a 6 by 5. So I know the math can be kind of tricky, and I don't know, I'm just really leaning more towards creating some of my own designs right now. Again, I'd love to hear comments from you. Please like, subscribe, share, and come visit me again. Have a great night. Bye now.